Let's get Nora Lisa in the show. Hello, Nora Lisa.
Hi, how are
How
you?
are you?
I'm good.
Yeah, I should have explained that. I think I'm still not completely familiar with the software, so I guess we
Okay.
get a new link every time. Nevertheless, you're here. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
So we're good to go. Because we're busy with the ABC NLP practitioner. ABC stands for antecedents, behavior, and consequences. It teaches us that consequences are way more important than antecedents. I just have something in my ear. And that we should, when we want to influence people, we should steer towards influencing them with consequences rather than antecedents. Nevertheless, this is an antecedent where I'm going to tell you up front, or I say before you actually do anything, how to act. And I'm going to explain it in terms of neuro-linguistic programming. That's the NLP part of ABC NLP. Neuro-linguistic programming actually has 3 parts. The neuro part we did, controlling your emotions, feeling good, having the right mental imagery, and stop negative inner self-talk, along with a 30-year plan, a better self-image, and making good decisions. Is it still all working?
Yes, it is.
All right.
I've been reviewing our previous sessions throughout the week, so it's helped a lot.
Good. And then we switched to the linguistic part. We learned 2 models, one to clarify or to communicate, to clarify, and one to communicate to influence people. And have you been practicing that?
I have, yes.
Good. And do you notice that you have a bigger personal effectiveness when you communicate with others?
So far, so good. I've had a few people who catch on to what I'm trying to do, but for the most part, it's been successful.
Good. Yeah. And now we are at the 3rd part, the programming part, where we've seen that you could actually map out all people's internal states in the form of submodalities. And how do you say that? And today we're going to do it in a more elegant way. So let's put it on the screen, what we did last time. So hopefully you remember this one.
Oh, yeah.
That was the way out of confusion towards enlightenment, or the eureka moment.
Right.
Or as the German says, the aha-erlebnis.
Yeah.
Hi, Alami. Nice to see you here. Might have been some time that I've seen you, so great to see you once again. So this was how we did it last week. This time but it was very didn't have that much elegancy, because we basically went down the list without having any thought of figuring things out. This is basically start at the top, work your way to the bottom, which is not the most elegant thing to do. So today we're actually going to do it differently, in this form of NLP strategies, where we actually look at it, because even though our unconscious mind does all of these at the same time, you have your unconscious mind process visual data, auditory data, kinesthetic data, and smell and taste data constantly, unconsciously. So at any moment there is data being processed. And that's the reason why we can make it consciously through all these submodalities. But our conscious mind is like a flashlight that is looking in the dark for something, and it can only enlighten certain aspects of our experience, and then we switch often from one sense to the other. And so we can notice, oh, I feel great. And then we taste something and we go, that tastes really nice. Oh, now I feel even better. But it's very difficult for our conscious mind to do it for all 5 senses at the same time. It's very difficult to and know how something tastes, and how it smells, and how you feel about it, and the sounds in your environment, and the visuals around you.
Right.
So our conscious mind is really focusing on one sense, and then we become conscious of that sense, but then the other 4 senses get less attention.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, a Michelin star restaurant in the UK served a dish. What was people should be reminded of the sea. It was it looked like the sea. It looked like rocks with clams, but they had foam going on, so that was like the sea coming in. But they actually ask you to put in earplugs, and then you could hear the sea.
Wow.
And everybody was going, "Oh, this makes no sense. This is just over the top." And then they actually had it studied by a university whether people's sense of taste is actually changed by listening to music or to listen to certain sounds. And in fact, it is. So your meal will taste differently if you hear the sea. But of course, that it is great that it will taste different and maybe even better. But when you're tasting it, it's not like you're listening to the sea consciously. Of course, your unconscious mind processes it, and it influences your taste buds somehow. Hi, Mia. Good to see you again. And so, given that our conscious mind moves from sense to sense to sense, you can do it much more elegantly, looking at what people are doing, by actually looking at, okay, which is the sense that they're conscious of, and what is the sense that they're conscious of after that. So that's what we're going to do today, and hopefully figure out how some of your behaviors work. But in order to do that, I first have to talk about system analysis and modeling. That's going to do it very quickly. And so many NLP trainers, I always call them fake NLP trainers, and they claim that they model excellent behavior. They pretend that if you study NLP, that you then you can, within a couple of hours, you can become this great violinist, which is of course bullshit. If it were the case, then there are literally millions of NLP practitioners worldwide, but very, very few of them have actually made it big. So this so-called modeling of excellence, even if it were the case, which it's not, then it is certainly ineffective, because there are just so many NLP people who are not capable of much. Nevertheless, NLP did start out with modeling, and this was the book that was based. This is the 2002 version. Actually, in the 70s, I think even the end of the 60s, the first edition of this book was published. And this is a U.S. professor, Donald Boyd, and what he is capable of doing, at least what he was capable of doing in the 60s, was that if you knew how much it rained in year 1, then he could calculate the level of groundwater. Do you call it groundwater?
Sea level?
No, not the sea level. The water that's where you can find the water in the ground if you start to dig. That level.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
Yeah. So he could predict how deep you had to dig before you found water, depending on the rain in the year before. Table level is it, according to Ben.
Oh, it's table level.
So, and people are amazed by that. This is one of the first models that people actually made, and people were amazed by that. They were, wow, that's really good. And so Richard Bandler thought, well, okay, if he can do that with rain and the table level, water table level, if he can do it with the water table level, then maybe I can do it with humans. And that's how they came up with the meta model and the Milton model and stuff like that. In combination with another book, but I did not prepare the the looks of, because, well, it doesn't look like much. But there's a very important model in that book. The book is called Plants and the Structure of Behavior. It's from 1960. It's by a psychologist called Miller. And he came up with the TOTE model, which stands for Test, Operate, Test, Exit. And that's actually, this is how NLP is built. Every single step that we've taken over these couple of months that we're now together doing the ABC NLP practitioner, each of every step that we took when we're doing a technique was actually a TOTE model. But I'm going to explain how it works. It looks, I say, more complex than it really is. And the good thing is that I think that when Miller published the TOTE model, even though they now pretend like all the scientists, when he published it in 1960, we were immediately taken in by it, and we've used it ever since. That is a lie. In reality, only NLP started to work with the TOTE model, and maybe one or two others studied it quite a bit, find very few references to it. Fortunately, nowadays, Colin de Jong, Professor de Jong, from cybernetic big five theory, that's my other big theory that I work with, he has embraced the TOTE model. So now we are in good company when we use the TOTE model. You can claim that we are inspired by doing it through the works of Professor de Jong, even though that in reality we've been doing it for 50 years and he has only been doing it for 3 years. But who cares about bragging rights as long as we can say something respectable. So the TOTE model is part of something called cybernetics. Did we talk about cybernetics before?
Briefly, yes.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether we did in this series. We talked about it in the cybernetic big five brain type series.
Oh, in that case, no, I don't think we have talked about it much in this series.
And so cybernetics is a science. It's a real science. It has been developed during the it has been developed in World War II. And they had this group that developed this had the assignment to create a computer that could calculate where German planes would be, depending on where they were in the past. Because the anti-aircraft guns that they used, they shot bullets that were too slow. So if the plane was here and this is the gun, I have to work in mirror. I still haven't figured out how to change my camera. Then if you shot your bullet towards where the plane is, and then the plane would be so fast that by the time your bullet got in the air, the plane would be elsewhere.
Wow.
So you should actually be calculated where the plane would go and then shoot there, and then you would hit the plane. But that takes integral calculations, which are quite difficult to do, especially for the average anti-aircraft gunner. So they wanted to build a machine, an automatic machine that could do this for them, and they failed completely. Of course, the computers that we have today are digital computers built by, they're all so-called Turing machines. There was an older scientist, Alan Turing, who created the digital computer. Brilliant mind and brilliant solution. Nevertheless, because they failed so at building a computer in reality, they did, the cybernetics people of the World War II, they did a lot on theory building. And actually one of them, Shannon, has created the information theory. And that still is, and even actually it turns out that the digital computers that we now have also abide by the laws that Shannon found and that the other cybernetic people found. So they did not build a real computer, but they did build a complete, framework that we now know as information theory. And the interesting part is that they, from the get-go, they said, well, we're not interested in computers per se, we're interested in animals, humans, and computers. And they actually built something that Dr. Ben Mack says Shannon, who Robert Anton Wilson loves, which is absolutely true. Yeah, everybody loves Shannon. He's a brilliant guy. And nowadays his information theory is so good that they actually have proven that the laws of thermodynamics, which are physical laws, also abide by the laws of information that Shannon has come up with. So not only did he explain how computers, animals, and humans process information, but he actually it has now been shown that his law actually show how the universe processes information. So it's a brilliant guy. But it's also a lot of mathematics. But it all turns around a single idea, that of feedback loops. So there is a loop, which is called the cybernetic loop, and any system, any organism, or any computer system that follows it, that cybernetic loop, is also to be described as a cybernetic system and follows the laws that were discovered by the cyberneticians and Shannon. So the cybernetic loop is very easy to remember. It is first, activate the goal. Somehow you have to be goal-oriented. 2, select an action to achieve your goal. 3, do the action. That's one thing, to select an action, but you also have to actually do it. 4, interpret the result of your action, which is a very broad way of saying we're going to measure what happened after you have done the action. The fifth step is compare your interpretation of the result with your goal. So you basically have 2 images. This is what we want to achieve. This is what we actually produced. Are they the same? If they're not the same, then you have feedback, or in all cases you have feedback. So the 6th step is the feedback loop, and then you get feedback. Either if they're the same, so this is your goal, this is what you actually achieved. And if they're the same picture, then you say, okay, we're done. We're going to go back to step 1 and activate another goal. Sometimes the new goal is the same as the old goal. If you're working in a factory, you've built the car is complete, it works, it's actually fine. The car moves on, and then you have to build another car. So sometimes you just repeat old goals, but often you do new goals. And if you fail to achieve your goal because the image of your goal and the image of what you achieved still differ, then you can go back to step 2, select another action to see if you can achieve your goal with using a second action. But only, this is important, but only if there's still enough time. So if you're going to do feedback loops, it's very important, we now learn, that you actually either limit them in time, say we're going to do this for 1 hour, or that you limit the number of times that you can go through the feedback loop and say we're going to see whether we can solve this issue or whether we can achieve our goal within 10 steps. Because if you don't put timers on the feedback loops, then you get the problem that, for instance, people with the depression are having, is that they think, oh, what is my goal? I want to be happy. How do I feel? Oh, I feel depressed. Okay, let's do something. Let's try, I'm going to try positive affirmation. I feel great. I feel great. No, didn't work. I still feel depressed. Okay, what should I do now? And then they have no way of getting out of this feedback loop. They're just going, their goal is happiness. They fail to achieve happiness, and they're just stuck in that loop. So we want to prevent that by actually adding timers to it all. Because if the third way of having feedback is that we still have this the goal we want to achieve, we still have not achieved it, and but we ran out of time, and in that case you go back to step 1. You're going to activate a new goal, and that new goal, most smart people are going to have a new goal where they actually escalate the whole issue to somebody else. And for instance, if you're working in a factory and your job is to build a car and it fails over and over again, then at some point you should inform a manager there's something going wrong.
Right.
Well, that's probably the same case in your line of business. If you're trying to repair a computer and it doesn't work after a couple of hours, at some point you have to alert someone and say, this is failing to work, we have to do something else.
Right.
And so this is all, very standard way that organizations operate, but fortunately it's also a very standard way that humans operate, and actually also machines and computers. So now let's see how the whole cybernetic loop is actually almost completely completely represented by the TOTE model. And so the TOTE model, we start with the stimulus. There is something happening for some reason. And now the first test is, are we supposed to do something about it? For instance, you're at your work. I know that you have responsibility for IT systems, right?
Okay.
And so you say a fly flies by.
Yeah.
Do you need to take action?
No.
No, probably not. You couldn't care less. So then, but your brain still goes, a fly. That's the stimulus.
Yeah.
It's running a test. Do I need to do something? No, not my responsibility. And so you go immediately to an exit. You exit the whole fly swatting strategy because you think, yes, not my responsibility. Fuck it.
Right.
But say that something else happened. I have no clue whether you're actually in charge of computer hardware, but let's assume you are. And one of the server computers starts to smoke.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, that would suck.
Huh?
Yeah, that would suck.
Exactly. So then your brain goes, test. Do I need to do something? Yes, probably you need to do something. You probably need to, I don't know, use a fire extinguisher or put out the electricity or whatever. So then you move to the operation and you operate the system, whatever, the fire extinguisher, or you cut off the power, whatever. And then you have to retest, okay, did we now achieve our goal? Our goal was to put out the fire. Is the fire indeed being put out? If you now see more server computer systems starting to smoke, then your brain goes, did not work, we should do something else.
Right.
But if the fire is put out, then you can have an exit and you basically go and do something else.
Yeah.
So this is clear how the test operate test exit system works?
Yes.
So the interesting part of this is that because you keep on testing whether you achieve your goal, this is actually how you can become an expert in anything. So even though I disagree with the fake NLP trainers where they claim that if you study NLP, you can become a master almost instantly. You can become an expert, but often these loops takes a long time. For instance, this is how I learned DJing. At the end of the 90s, I really wanted to be a DJ. So I collected music, I made my first mix. I think I burned it to a CD, I gave it to a real DJ.
Nice.
He started to listen to it, but he immediately pulled off his headphones going like, ah! He said, beats are not synchronized. The different harmonies are conflicting with each other. This is complete bullshit. This is so bad at all.
Wow.
So then I went, because as it turned out, my ears didn't. I was so not trained in being a DJ that my ears were unable to hear how bad I was. That was how bad I was. It's really, really bad if you don't even know how bad you are at something. Then you are really, really, really bad at something.
Yeah.
So actually, it took me like 4 or 5 years. Hypnosis helped its part. At one point, Richard Bandler asked me, Joost, is there anything that you like to do but you're unable to do it currently? And I said, yes, DJing. And so even though lots of the DJing stuff that I learned is very consciously, I basically learned to buy the right computer systems who can do, make sure that the beats are synchronized and that they calculate the key of the music so that I know which keys to combine. But also my brain, first of all, I got ears to actually hear it. So nowadays people go, wow, this, for instance, on stream, this is a great DJ. And I'm going, not really. But because people don't have DJ ears, they don't really hear where the beats are not completely in sync with each other. Nowadays, I do hear that immediately. I go,
wow.
It's just 2,000ths of a second out of sync. It's the details that I can hear. But what really was weird, I'll explain it with my headphones, is that at one point I was DJing, and I always DJ with my headphones on. So.
Yeah.
And then and I take them off now and then just to breathe. At the moment I took them off, I had the feeling that the music sped up. And of course, the DJ equipment, you can actually change the pitch, and it actually makes sorry, especially nowadays they have software that is so good that it keeps the same key even if you pitch it up. So the music goes faster, but it doesn't change in key. But in the old days, when you pitched it to get it to go faster, it also made the key go higher. And so you actually have equipment as a DJ to make it go faster. So my first reaction was when I heard, oh, the music is suddenly a stuk faster than it used to be. I immediately looked. Did I say almost by accident touch one of the knobs that changed the thing? The speed of the music. And I was going, and you can actually see numbers. So I saw the numbers. The numbers said no, the music goes as fast as it used to be. So I went back and I said, okay, let's try it. Let's go back. Put on my headphones, and it was perfectly the normal rate of speed for the music. Put them off, and now I was very careful not to touch anything. I was very careful, and suddenly the music was going fast again. Normal, fast. And after 3 times, it hit me, and I said, oh no, it's going the other way around. Without my headphones, I hear how it goes normally. With my headphones, my brain uses time distortion to slow time down, and actually makes it as if the music is going way slower than it's actually going. So in that way, then I have much more time to actually listen to the beats, make sure they're completely synchronized, listen to whether there's room for additional sounds and stuff like that. So that is a way that my brain come up with how to do it, but the whole way to trigger that happening was by using the TOTE model, by using feedback loops, by basically saying, okay, this is great so far, but this and this and this is going wrong. These are here are the ways that you can actually become even better.
Right.
So as long as you take in feedback, as the NLP people always say, there is no failure, there's only feedback. Well, there is only a feedback if you treat every failure as feedback. And because every time you fail, it's the world telling you that you did something wrong. And if you take in that information as, oh, I can improve myself, then you didn't fail, and then you actually learned something. And then if you actually improve later on, then you haven't failed at all. There's a question by Sheila. Can you operate with uptime and test and feedback with downtime? No, you can't. And so for the people who don't know the difference between downtime and uptime, this is a meta program. It's something that's part of the NLP Master Practitioner. Because I like to combine it with hypnosis. You can change these things best when you hypnotize people. And uptime, it is a term that comes from the theater. So when actors are learning their scripts, it's called downtime, and when they're on stage, it's uptime. And because the big difference is that if you're studying your script, then you can actually think about how you're going to say it, how you're going to do your body movements and stuff like that. You can try different things out. You can, come in some kind of meta position where you actually see yourself doing it, and then you can criticize yourself while you're doing it, which is all great to learn the script. But the moment you're on stage, if you start to do it like that, it becomes so self-conscious, then you're going to be a horrible actor. So on stage, you should be completely in it, and actually, without thinking, be able to do your part. Both of these cases, so both uptime and downtime, are part of the operation. So if you have uptime, you say you're on stage and you're actually using the play, then you can, that's the operation, and you can afterwards use it as a test and feedback to see if you can improve the way you play. And if you learning the script in downtime, you can also improve the way that you learn the script. So great question, but both are part of the operation and not part of the test and feedback part. Any questions, Nora-Lisa, about the TOTE model?
Not yet, no.
Good, good. Then we'll go to NLP strategies. Well, actually, it was still the Dutch version. Can you come up with an activity that you regularly do? Preferably one that also involves thinking and feeling and maybe imagination.
How about writing is an activity I do all the time.
Yes, excellent example.
Yeah.
Especially, first of all, because I've actually written a free ebook in Dutch how to write a book. Because most people spend a lifetime thinking about the first sentence and never get beyond it.
I can relate, yeah.
Where they underestimate the power of revisions.
Yeah.
Really, the first step in writing books is actually write a lot. And then afterwards you can check to see whether we can improve these sentences. But it's my strategy. Maybe you have a different strategy. So now we have to come up with a way to denote everything. Basically, have to come up with our own private language. And the first, I'll make a new page. Let me just go to there. First, we have to make a distinction, but we already made a distinction when we started the first time, between internal and external.
Right.
So some steps are external and some steps are internal. These are the internal behaviors and the external behaviors that we have been talking about throughout these episodes. Do you remember all the internal behaviors? Because there are exactly 5.
Internal, like from the last session?
Yes, from all the lessons so far. It's not a trick question. It's basically the internal activities.
Like the 5 senses,
exactly.
Hearing, seeing, taste.
Exactly. Those are the internal. So we have feeling, imagining, inner self-talk, and taste and smell. Do we have 5? Yeah, so we'll use F for feelings, I for imagination stuffy. Oh dear. We'll use. Yeah, you see my point.
Yeah.
We'll use IST for inner self-talk. Of course, the NLP community is using VACOG, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, I basically think that we should talk in ways that other people also understand.
Yeah.
And so what we can do is say that the first step has an internal feeling. Then we can basically write FI. Then we know, hey, Nora-Lisa is feeling something and it's internal. Right?
Yes.
Good. Can I split this? Oh. Let's do it this way. So, yes. So when it comes to external, we have to make another distinction we did not make as of yet.
Okay.
That is because the difference between sensing and acting. Now, I want to make clear that when you sense something, that is a very active process. So NLP, regular NLP, pretends as if sensing something is the passive receiving of data, and like your eyes, that it is as if they pretend But if I see something, then it is as if the data is coming in through the eyes, is processed by the brain, and then acted out through the body. But this is simply not scientific at all. In reality, seeing something is a very active process. We use the muscles in our eyes, or we actually move our body, can move closer, can see. We actually might light stuff up and stuff like that. So experiencing is not the passive receiving of data. It's actually quite an active process. Nevertheless, it is quite a bit less active than actually doing something. Right?
Right. Yeah.
So we'll make a difference between active experiencing and active doing. And now you can basically define. So if you feel something and you're active experience something that you feel from the outside world, what could that be?
Like maybe drinking a glass of water and needing to use the bathroom be an example. That's like an active.
Because the drinking a glass of water, I would say that would fall more on experiencing taste. It's all a matter of definitions, but so I was simply either if you sit in a chair and you feel the chair, that is experiencing something that you feel, or even if someone hits you, and you get somebody hits you on your nose, and you go, "Oh, I felt that."
Right.
So let's say that your suggestion would be that writing starts with being hit on the nose. Then we would say it's a feeling, it's external, and it is active experiencing. So it would be a FI.
Okay.
So this is basically feeling the world, or being hit. I'll skip active doing because we're going to see that we basically, once we have filled in the whole diagram, then whatever is left is actually external active doing.
Okay.
So if you see something on the outside, well, I'll give it away. So this is basically seeing something. Could also be reading something.
Right.
If you're actively doing something that other people can see, what kind of activity would that be?
Like holding the pen and putting it to paper.
Yes, so writing. So writing. Yeah. Writing is an example. Writing or painting. But here we have auditory stuff, so you can of course hear sounds. And how do you call it when you produce sounds?
Speaking.
Yes. It is that simple. Speaking or singing. So now we get into a more fun part. So of course we can taste. That is basically eating or drinking. But can you actually produce taste?
I would say psychologically, if I'm writing a scene where they're eating cake or something, I might imagine the taste in my mouth and write about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that I will still call writing. This is basically cooking. And so you can smell stuff, of course.
All right.
Smells. I don't know if that's a good thing. Is good. Can we produce stuff that smells? Well,
like by adding spices or.
Well, I would say that would be taste, but.
Or like in the context of writing, if I'm erasing something, you can smell the scent of the rubber, or smell the paper.
Again, I think it's basic. For instance, if you put on perfume. And so the active doing is anything where you produce a stimulus for other people that they can sense.
Okay.
But the fun part is called farting. the opposite.
Right.
So this is how we can code every. And of course, I should come back to the last one. So everything else is actively doing. Why? Because when you do it, you can actually feel your body doing it. So if you say we're going to cycle, or I'm going to hike, or I'm going to I don't know. I have a hard time coming up with stuff that's not one of the other things. But if I'm going to swim, so anything else is basically if you do it. And these are the Marco things that we had with the ABC model. Measurable, I'm active. It is something that I can do, but a dead person can't do. It's under my control, it's reliable, measurable, and it is observable. So anything that is not covered by the other force is actually a feeling external, actively doing.
Right.
And actually, we can skip the active because it is both times it's active. So in my example, we don't need that E or the A because it is obvious. So we have the difference between passively, but it's not really passively, but it's a bit more passively feeling something happening to our body, or actually doing it ourselves, which is an FED.
Right.
So now we're going to actually come up with your strategy to write. And you're a writer. You have written books. You're an author. So let's ask you. And when you are eliciting a strategy, the first question you ask is, "How do you know it's time to write?" This is the first test, of course, of the TOTE model. How do we know that we should activate the writing operation?
For me, it's when I have a thought that I don't want to escape. Like this morning, I woke up with a thought in my mind of a sentence said out loud by one of my characters, and I immediately reached for the iPad and wrote it down.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
I had this experience this weekend as well.
Oh, cool.
I actually had but this is more of a philosophical idea that I had, but it is for my new book. Not the one that is going to be published on September 6th, but I already started with the book after that. And I came up with the idea that the first step with organizational behavior management is specification. And I came up with the idea that, well, if it connects to betting. As you know, I'm a big fan of if people disagree about something, that we should come up with some kind of bet so that people can put their money where their mouth is. Yeah. But if you make a bet, you have to really specify the bet quite well, because if you're not good at specifying the bet, then you might pretty well lose. So I thought we use the Marco acronym, what I just mentioned, the measurable, active, or control, reliable, and observable, as a way to test whether something is real external behavior. But you can actually say, no, we can change that if you have well formulated bets. I think that will also include the. It's good enough to run organizations by it. So that was my idea, and actually it took me 36 hours before I wrote it down. I forgot it about 3 times, and I was like, oh, what did I forget? And then, finally I wrote it down. So
my brother and I are always placing bets with each other, so I totally get it. But,
right.
Yeah.
But in your case, it is inner self-talk. You'll hear one of your characters say something.
Yes.
So let's check the system. So it was an IST, internal.
Right.
What I did not explain is that we actually can split this between whether it is digital, yes or no. What digital means is if it's digital, it's your own inner self-talk. And in this case, you actually hear one of your characters saying it.
Yeah.
So it's not really inner self-talk, because it's not you talking to yourself. It's actually a character. So I'm going to change this, and I'm going to do the A for auditory, and the I for internally.
Right.
And we can add to this a mnemonic so that we know what's about. Character says something, right?
Right.
Of course, we're not going to do it, but we can take the submodalities, and that is actually auditory other sounds, because you're actually hearing the character say it, right? It's not. You're not thinking that, oh, it would be nice if this character would say this and this and this. No, you actually hear the character say it inside your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's also in the voice and the tone of voice of the character. It's not your own voice.
Very true. Yeah.
So that's the reason why we call it auditory other sounds, and then we can basically fill in all those submodalities. So I'm going to say plus submods. So then we know. Then we have a very clear idea of what you're doing inside. We know that you're hearing a sound inside your head. We know it's a character that says something, and we know all the submodalities of it.
Right.
So what's the next step?
I wrote it down. I typed it out. Oh, yeah.
So the first question is, how do you know to start a certain operation or a certain strategy? The second, after that, all the questions are, and what happens next? What happens next? What happens next? What happens next? So in your case, you're going to write it down. So let's check our scheme. That is a imagining, because you write down something that people can read. Imagining, it is external, and you're actually doing it, right? We don't have, as soon as it is external, we don't need to put in the submods because of the submodalities, because the submodalities of reality are always the same, right? That is it's in 3D and it's in color and stuff like that. So okay, so we have the thought. You write it down, and what happens next?
And then I'll write around it. I think of that one small sentence that the character says as like the seed that has been planted, and I'll write a whole other chapter around it.
Right.
Yeah. So that's what happens next. Is I elaborate on that one sentence.
And so here we hear something that is typically when we talk to an expert like yourself, is that you will phrase it in words that sound really nice, and everybody goes, "Oh, of course, you can't," but are actually violating the meta model rules. So it's my task when I elicit this strategy to actually try to see if we can boil it down to things sentences in terms of the five senses. So one of the basic NLP presuppositions is that you can put everything that is of interest to humans in terms of the five senses. Of course, this is exactly how we do it, because we can use it through creating an NLP strategy, which will be. So you say when you write around it, of course, writing is the IED. We already have it, but we don't know. But the real question is, how do you know what to write?
It's one of those things where one thing leads to another, so there will be a chain reaction, and I know how you feel about cause and effect, but
you're saying it perfectly. One thing follows another is perfect. That doesn't imply any cause and effect. But are you actually, for instance, imagining the environment where the character says it?
Yes.
So that if I go along, I said, okay, you have this one sentence, and you have written it down so you don't forget it. And I think the next step, but correct me if I'm wrong, the next step would be to imagine an environment where the character could have said something like that.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And so let's put in that. So now we do an imagining internal. And of course, we and of course we can add the submods again, because this is basically imagination. So we go to visuals, and we can fill in. There's a fly that annoys me.
I saw it crawl across your screen a few times.
I know. I should not have talked about the example. I started the example of a fly, and there was no fly at that time. And so
You manifested it.
yeah, this is complete karma.
Yeah.
And so you can see that you imagine an environment where the character could have said it. And do you test whether this is the correct environment? Are you going through a loop where you test multiple environments?
In a way, I do, because I was thinking, like, are these characters at the office, or are they at the bar, or are they on a date? Like it. Yeah.
And do you do that? So is that do you do that visually when you see them in all the different environments, or is it something that where you use inner self-talk and say to yourself, okay, this character says this, but does he say it in an office or at home, or is this an auditory or a visual process that's going through all the scenes?
It's visual.
Visual, okay. And so that's a good, because we already had the visual step for step 3, the imagining internal. And so how do you select the right environment? Is that something that you do by with feeling whether it feels right?
Yeah, I would say it's like a feeling. If I'm trying to, I think about what kind of emotion I'm trying to provoke with this scene, and like I'm thinking of a scene in one of my previous books where they're on a cruise ship and then there's a food fight all of a sudden. Like I try to think of possibilities in terms of like what could happen, what might happen, what could happen in this scene.
Right. Somehow you select. So you were having a character who was saying something, then you wrote it down so that you didn't forget it. Then you came up with different visualizations of the environment where it could have been said.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you say. That's how I translate what you said in the terms from there are all these possibilities, but you have to select at some point. You have to select one of those possibilities, and that's actually what's going to be written about in the book, right?
Uh-huh.
So, but most of the time when people have multiple visualizations where they have to select one of them, they do that by their feelings. They just go, okay, this scene doesn't feel right. Okay, this scene still doesn't feel right. Oh, a food fight on the cruise ship. Yeah, that feels right.
Right.
Is that how it goes for you?
I'm not sure if it's a feeling though that I go with. I think, oh, this last scene was kind of sad. I'm gonna do some comic relief. Or oh wait, yeah, that is a feeling.
Most of the time, it's not. Most of the time, it's not a very intense feeling. So that it's not like you're going or you're going.
Right.
That's just a very small feeling, just enough to let you know that you selected the right scene.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
There's a feeling internal.
Mm-hmm.
Scene right. Again, we can find the submodalities. And if we look in it's the wrong scheme. Here we are. So we go to feelings, primary emotional feeling, and then you see the first one is intensity. And so it could be that the feeling is a intensity 5 or 10, real low intensity, but still enough for your unconscious mind to know, hey, okay, this is the right scene.
Right, because sometimes there could be a boring scene where they're discussing what to do next or what their plan of action is, and like obviously not every.
Hopefully, that still feels as the right scene at that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we could actually elicit. We're running out of time, so we're not going to elicit all the submodalities of that feeling. But it is quite handy to do it for yourself, because it will just alert you much faster to what is the right scene.
Oh, right.
And for instance, I do that with DJing. So for DJing, I have to listen to a lot of music. My ears are very well developed in the 20 years that I've been DJing. So I spend like 3 seconds. I download like 1,000 tracks a week.
Wow.
And I spend like 3 seconds for each track. But that is still 3,000 seconds each week. Yeah. So if I divide it by 60, that is 50 minutes. So I spend about an hour going through this. And then within 3 seconds, my brain says, no. Sometimes it says, how can people create stupid shit like this? Because it's all house music, and most of the house music produced is such a terrible waste of notes. But now and then my brain goes, reasonable. And I put it in a different folder so I can go back to it, listen more closely. And sometimes my brain goes, oh yes, this is the one, and it goes in the same folder, but there's much more, a much higher probability to make it to the final set.
You need to come to the US and do a DJ tour here.
Yes, yeah. Well, first we have to get rid of the Corona crisis.
Yeah.
And then you are more than welcome to promote me with all clubs. Actually, I'm always looking for a manager. So if you want to be my manager in the US.
Yeah, because I can dance all night and promote.
You can actually take 10 to 20% of whatever fee they're paying me as your management fee. Anyways, so that is, but sometimes I have these numbers that I say, it's like how do you say it in, so it would be between a B and a C in American, high school graduation terms. So in Dutch, we always compare on a scale from 1 to 10, so it would be a 5.5. Maybe a 5.5, maybe a 6, maybe a 5. And then I listen and I use this low intense feeling. Is this something that I actually want to play on one of my sets? And then sometimes my brain says, nah, I shouldn't do it. And sometimes it goes, well, let's try it. And then when I'm DJing, often I know, because I never prepare anything. The songs are prepared, but every single set is completely ad hoc, based on my intuitions and how things are going when I'm DJing. And then I have a lot of track prepared that are capable of doing. And then sometimes a track, and I think, no, not now. And then again, that's also a feeling. And then I go, I still not. And if after, I don't know, like 15 or 20 minutes, the track is still on, not, then I say, oh, fuck it, it's just too long. Let's prepare in other track. And so these loops are almost always based on feelings with humans. So the second test, although the first test is often a feeling, but the second test is almost always a feeling if it comes to human strategies. So here we have, so the feeling is seen right. If not, go back to step 3, right?
Yeah.
And now I can guess step 5 because now you're basically, once you have select. So when you come to step 5, you know this is the right scene. And now you probably just play the scene in front of you as a visual internal, and then you're basically writing down what you're seeing inside your mind, right?
Right.
So here comes another FI, and now we get the no, that's feeling. My bad. Another imagination. Run the movie of the scene. And then here we have step 6. We have the we have to check what is writing. Oh yeah, we already had the IAD. Write down the scene.
Right. Yeah.
So this is how we create NLP strategies. I always criticize other NLP trainers because they never, ever accept the real good ones like Richard Bensler and John Laval. But they never, ever explain to people that they should add the submodalities of all the internal states, of all the internal behaviors in terms of ABC NLP. Huh?
Yeah, submodalities, they're important.
Yes, they're very important. Yeah. But these are fake NLP trainers who have no clue what they're talking about.
Right.
And they just miss small details like submodalities. So this is how you create an NLP strategy. Any questions?
No, this has been great.
Good. Well, then the only homework that you get is to create a NLP strategy to get me booked all over California.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
And then we only have to wait till the Corona crisis abides, and then I'll fly towards you, and we'll have all the clubs and festivals pay for it all.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yes. Well, I'm a great DJ, but the other great DJs, but that's not what I'm going to get paid the first time. They get like $250,000 for a single set. So
Yeah.
imagine if you take 20% of that.
Yeah, I bet we could do it. We could totally do it. Like,
yeah, I don't want to put numbers inside your head, but what a big number for a single. Often it's more 1 or 2 hours. It's just,
yeah, the ones in Vegas make 50,000.
50,000 a single performance on a night, and often there's like 3 or 4 performances. So they would play in 3 or 4 clubs in Vegas, get paid $200,000. I can kind of understand why they have their own private jets.
Yeah.
So make it happen. Use NLP strategies.
Yeah.
There's a question, a very long question. Can you say globally what steps we need to take when making a strategy for doing something unconscious? I think first go think about the desirable behavior, then do the behavior, and afterwards feedbacking. But I'm not sure what exact steps are in terms of the 5 senses. Well, the step depends, of course, on what you're actually doing. And I don't think there is a strategy for making stuff unconscious, because the whole idea of NLP strategies is that we try to make something conscious. What you can do is optimize strategies. So if you actually, for instance, if Nora Lisa would have said, yes, so I have this sentence inside my head, what the character says, then I cry for 1 hour and afterwards I write it down. Then we could have said, well, how about skipping the crying for 1 hour part? And then we're actually optimizing her strategy. But the strategy is, per definition, what you experience consciously. So you cannot do unconscious strategies. Nevertheless, if you have it figured out and you do it a lot of time, and especially if it produces positive consequences, then the ABC learning of the instrumental learning through the ABC model happens, and then it becomes a habit. And of course, once it's a habit, then it also becomes unconscious behavior. So hopefully that is the answer that you were looking for. If not, let me know. Any questions from you, Nora Lisa?
No, but I think Ben wanted to ask you something about that sales page we were working on.
Yes, but we'll probably do it best offline.
Okay.
So we'll just hang in there when we finish up.
Okay.
And then, well, Ben can join us, or I can send you guys a Zoom link.
Oh yeah, Zoom would be great.
I'll send the Zoom link.
Okay.
So next week, then we'll. Oh, there's Ben already.
Yeah, he says hi.
Yeah. So next week we will. That will be the last of the ABC NLP practitioners, because we have covered everything.
Oh,
well,
wow, really?
Programs, but that is a NLP master practitioner level thing.
Okay.
And we'll do anchoring. So we did it yesterday with the Dutch people, and we found out that, at least for the Dutch people, we were quite capable of anchoring them auditorily through my new music machine. So it will allow me to play with my little machine. So if there are no more questions, Nora Lisa, please remain in this. If I say goodbye, it's not goodbye to you, it's goodbye to the viewers.
I'll unplug my headphones so that the sound is on.
So, all right. Bye-bye, viewers. Hopefully I see you tomorrow at 7 p.m. We're going to expose fake NLP, and we're going to look into fake NLP presuppositions. See you tomorrow. Bye, bye, bye.